Daniel Mercer had traveled across many towns and cities before, but this time, his journey felt different. As he drove along the quiet Arizona roads, the desert stretched endlessly around him. The sun painted the sky a soft orange, and the warm wind moved across the land as if whispering stories from long ago. Daniel kept glancing at the map he had printed, even though he knew he was going the right way. He was excited, but deep down, he was also nervous. He had been invited to visit an Apache community to learn about their land traditions, but he wasn't sure what they expected from him. He wondered if he would fit in. He wondered if he would be welcomed. Most of all, he wondered if he truly understood the responsibility that came with the invitation. Daniel was a researcher at a university, someone who normally worked with books, old records, and long scientific papers. His job usually kept him behind a desk, but he had always been interested in learning how different cultures cared for their land. When he had written to the tribe months earlier asking for permission to learn, he had never expected a reply. To his surprise, he received a warm message from Lena Naicha, a tribal liaison who wrote that he was welcome to visit, but only if he came with respect and patience. Daniel had agreed immediately. Now that he was actually arriving, he felt the weight of those words. As his car approached the community, he slowed down. The road turned into a narrow dirt path, surrounded by tall grass and scattered trees. He saw small houses built with care, each one different, but all part of a peaceful landscape. People walked calmly from place to place, talking quietly. It felt like a world far away from the fast pace he knew. When he stepped out of his car, he felt the silence of the land, a silence that was not empty, but full. Lena was waiting for him near a wooden bench under a large oak tree. She wore a simple shirt and jeans, and her long, dark hair was tied back. She gave him a polite smile, not too warm, not too distant. Daniel appreciated that. He felt she was someone who did not try to impress or pretend. She simply was herself. "You made it," she said kindly. "Yes," Daniel answered, trying not to sound as nervous as he felt. "Thank you again for inviting me." "We'll see how it goes," she replied with a calm expression. "People will observe you for a while. That's normal here." Daniel nodded, even though he wasn't completely sure what she meant. Lena led him through the community, showing him the small school, the gathering area, and a few gardens where vegetables and herbs grew. Every place had people working quietly, chatting, or simply going about their day. When they passed, some nodded at Daniel politely. Others looked at him with careful curiosity. He felt as though he were being measured, but not in an unfriendly way. It was more like they were trying to understand who he might be. As they walked, Daniel tried to explain why he was there. He told Lena about his research, how he wanted to learn about traditional ways of caring for land, especially the practices that had existed long before modern tools or textbooks. But while he spoke, he noticed that Lena didn't react much. She listened, but she didn't smile or show surprise. When he finished, she said softly, "What we can teach you isn't only about land. It's about values, about how we see the world. Those things can't be learned from notes." Daniel felt a bit embarrassed. He realized he had been speaking like a researcher instead of a guest. "I understand," he said quickly. "I'm here to learn properly. I hope I can." "We will see," Lena repeated, not unkindly. They reached a larger open area where several elders sat under the shade of a tall tree. They were speaking with one another, but when Lena approached with Daniel, they paused. She introduced him respectfully, using his full name and explaining why he had come. Daniel felt their eyes on him, calm, thoughtful, and wise. One of the elders, an older man with silver hair tied neatly, nodded for Daniel to sit. Daniel lowered himself onto the bench beside them. The elder introduced himself as Joseph. His voice was gentle but had a strength that came from many years of experience. Lena mentioned that Daniel wished to learn about the land. Elder Joseph studied him for a moment before speaking. "When a guest comes here," he said slowly, "we do not ask who they are from their papers. We learn who they are from how they act. Words can be many. Actions show truth." Daniel listened carefully, understanding that this was important. "You wish to learn from us," Elder Joseph continued. "That means you must first show that you are here with respect, that you understand this place is not a classroom. It is a living home for many families." Daniel nodded. "I understand. I'll do my best." "We do not ask for the best," Elder Joseph corrected gently. "We ask for sincerity." Daniel felt the difference in those words. It made him reflect on the way he approached his research. He wanted to learn, but he had always done it through books or interviews. This was different. This was personal. After the meeting, Lena took Daniel to the small guest house where he would be staying. It had simple furniture, a bed, a table, and a window that opened to the quiet evening sky. Daniel placed his bags down and looked around. Everything felt different from what he was used to, but in a peaceful way. "We start early tomorrow," Lena said as she stood by the door. "You'll meet more people and help with some daily tasks. It's part of the process." "Process?" Daniel asked. "Proving yourself," she explained softly. "Not as a test, but as a sign of your intentions." Daniel wanted to ask more, but he could sense that Lena preferred not to explain everything at once. And maybe that was part of the experience, too. After she left, Daniel sat on the edge of the bed thinking about the day. He replayed everything in his head, the quiet roads, the watchful eyes, the calm but serious tone of the elders. Nothing had been unfriendly, but everything had carried meaning. He remembered Elder Joseph's words, "Actions show truth." He wondered what actions he would need to show. He wondered how long it would take for the community to trust him. He wondered if he would unintentionally make mistakes. Yet, despite all the worries, he also felt a strange excitement. He felt like he had stepped into a place where time moved differently, where people valued depth, patience, and honesty above anything else. It was refreshing. It was challenging. It was something he needed, even if he didn't fully understand why. When night settled, Daniel opened the window. Cool air entered the room, carrying the gentle scent of earth and distant rain. The sky was filled with stars brighter than he had ever seen in the city. It made him feel small, but also hopeful. He whispered to himself, "I'm here to learn, truly learn." In that quiet moment, he made a silent promise, not to rush, not to judge, not to act like an expert. Instead, he would listen, observe, help, and be present. The land outside seemed to hear his promise. The wind brushed lightly against the window, almost as if acknowledging his beginning. Daniel lay down after a long day, letting his eyes close as his mind drifted toward the unknown days ahead. He didn't know what challenges would come, or what customs he would need to follow. But he knew one thing for certain. He was no longer just a researcher. He was a guest stepping into a community with its own rhythm, wisdom, and heart. And tomorrow, his true journey would begin. The next morning, Daniel woke up earlier than he expected. The soft light of dawn entered the guest house gently, and the air was cool and fresh. He sat up slowly, rubbing his eyes, and listened to the quiet sounds around him. Birds were singing somewhere nearby, and he could hear the soft movement of people starting their day. Everything felt peaceful, but also full of purpose. Daniel stepped outside and saw Lena walking toward him with 2 cups of warm tea. She handed one to him with a small smile. "Good morning," she said. "Good morning," Daniel replied, holding the cup gratefully. "I slept well. This place feels calming. It has that effect on people, Lena said. But calmness comes from knowing you're part of something. Today you'll understand more. Daniel took a sip of the tea. It had a mild, earthy taste that he liked. He felt more awake as the warmth traveled through him. Where do we start? He asked. With the basics, Lena answered. You will help gather firewood for the community kitchen. It's a simple task, but it shows if you're willing to do everyday work with respect. Daniel nodded. He didn't mind physical work. In fact, he welcomed it. He followed Lena toward a small group of people already preparing to head into a wooded area nearby. They carried baskets and ropes, talking softly among themselves. When they noticed Daniel, they nodded politely, but stayed quiet. He understood they were still watching him, still forming their opinions. A man named Thomas, tall and soft-spoken, explained the task. We collect only what the land offers freely, he said. We don't take from living trees. Fallen branches are enough. Daniel appreciated that. It matched the respect for nature ideas he had studied, but seeing it practiced was different. Here it wasn't a theory, it was a way of life. They walked together through the trees. The air felt cooler under the shade, and the ground was covered with leaves and fallen branches. Daniel picked up a branch, checked if it was dry, and placed it carefully into his basket. He moved slowly, trying to show he was paying attention. Thomas watched him for a moment, then nodded approvingly. Good, he said. You're careful. Daniel felt relieved. He continued collecting branches, making sure not to break or damage anything. As they worked, some people began to talk to him, asking where he was from and what his favorite part of nature was. Their questions were simple, but they allowed Daniel to relax and speak more openly. He could tell they were trying to understand the kind of person he was, not the title he carried. After an hour, the group headed back with full baskets. The community kitchen was already busy with morning preparations. Women and men worked together, chopping vegetables, kneading dough, and stirring pots. The smell of fresh food filled the air. An older woman named Marita took the firewood with a thankful smile. Good work, she told him. Helping hands always bring good energy. Daniel felt proud of the small praise. It meant something real. Lena then guided him to another part of the community where a group of children were learning about plants. A teacher named Rosa introduced Daniel to them. The children stared at him with wide, curious eyes. Is he staying here? One girl asked. For a little while, Lena answered. Why? Another child asked. To learn, Rosa said. Just like all of you. The children seemed satisfied with that answer and returned to their lesson. Daniel watched as Rosa explained the names of different plants and their uses. Some were for food, some for medicine, and some for ceremonies. Daniel found it fascinating. He had read about these plants in books, but seeing them taught in such a natural way made him realize how deeply connected this community was to their environment. After the lesson, Rosa invited Daniel to try planting some seeds with the children. He knelt beside them, gently pressing seeds into the soil. The children giggled when he accidentally dropped too many seeds in one spot, and he laughed with them. It felt natural, unforced, and warm. In the afternoon, Lena brought him to a small, shaded area where Elder Joseph was waiting. Daniel felt a familiar nervousness as he sat down across from the elder. How was your morning? Joseph asked. Good, Daniel replied. I helped gather firewood and worked with the children. I'm learning a lot. That is good, Joseph said. But learning is not just seeing and doing, it is feeling. What did you feel today? Daniel paused. No one had ever asked him that in the middle of research work. I felt connected, he said slowly. I felt like everything here matters. Even the small tasks. It made me think differently. Elder Joseph nodded, pleased. This is the beginning of understanding. The land gives us what we need, and we show gratitude by taking only what is necessary and giving care in return. Daniel listened closely. He felt the words were simple, yet full of meaning. Tomorrow, Joseph continued, you will help with another task. It is part of our custom. A guest must show who they are through their actions, not to impress, but to show sincerity. I'm ready, Daniel said. We will see, Joseph replied gently. Later in the day, Daniel joined Lena in preparing a meal. He helped cut vegetables, wash herbs, and carry water. Lena noticed his careful movements. You're trying too hard to be perfect, she said lightly. Daniel blinked, surprised. Is that bad? It's not bad, Lena said. It's just unnecessary. We don't expect perfection. We expect presence. Just be here, fully. Daniel thought about that. It made sense. He had been trying to avoid mistakes, but maybe sincerity mattered more than flawless actions. In the evening, the community gathered near the open area where Daniel had first met the elders. A small fire was lit, and people sat in a circle talking and sharing stories. Children played nearby, their laughter adding warmth to the atmosphere. Daniel sat close to Lena, listening. One elder told a story about how the land teaches patience. Another shared a memory of learning to respect nature as a child. The stories were not grand or dramatic. They were simple, honest, and full of life lessons. Daniel felt honored to listen. He didn't speak unless someone asked him a question. He knew his role was not to take the spotlight, but to understand. At one point, a young man named Aaron spoke up. So Daniel, he said with a friendly tone, what do you think of our community so far? Daniel took a moment before answering. I think it's beautiful, he said sincerely. Not just the land, but the way everyone treats each other and the environment. It feels balanced. Aaron nodded with a smile. Balance is important. You'll learn more about that. As the night grew darker, Daniel felt a gentle peace settle in. The warmth of the fire, the calm voices, and the star-filled sky made him feel part of something meaningful, even if only for a little while. When everyone began to leave, Lena walked with Daniel back toward the guest house. You did well today, she said. People noticed your effort. I hope so, Daniel replied. I want to be respectful. You are, Lena said, but tomorrow will be more challenging. It's not hard work, but it requires trust and patience. I'll do my best, Daniel promised. Once he was alone in his room, Daniel sat by the window again, looking out at the peaceful night. He thought about the day, the firewood, the children, the plants, the stories. Everything felt connected. He wasn't just learning facts, he was learning a way of living. He stretched out on the bed, tired but happy. For the first time, he felt like he wasn't just a visitor. He felt like a student in the truest sense, someone eager to understand, not just observe. And he knew this was only the beginning. Something meaningful was waiting for him, something that would shape the days ahead. Whatever came next, he was ready to face it with honesty and an open heart. Daniel woke up on the third morning with a sense of nervous energy. Something in the air felt different. The quiet sounds of the community were the same as before, birds singing, soft footsteps on the dirt paths, the faint smell of breakfast from the community kitchen. But inside him, there was a new kind of anticipation. Today, he knew, would be important. Lena arrived outside his guest house just as he stepped out. She carried a small cloth bag and a calm expression. "Good morning," she greeted him. "Good morning," Daniel answered, noticing the bag. "What's that for?" "You'll see," she said with a small smile. "Today you'll be helping with something very meaningful. It's not difficult, but it requires trust, focus, and respect." Daniel felt his heart beat a bit faster. "I'm ready," he said. "Everyone says that," Lena replied gently. "What matters is how you show it." They walked together toward a large open area at the edge of the community. Several people had gathered there already, elders, adults, and even some older children. They formed a small circle, speaking quietly among themselves. When Daniel arrived, the talking softened. People looked at him with interest but not judgment. Instead, their expressions seemed curious, even hopeful. Elder Joseph stepped forward and motioned for Daniel to join him. Daniel nodded respectfully and stood at his side. "Today," Elder Joseph began in a calm voice, "we will prepare an important part of our land for a cultural burn. This is a tradition practiced by our ancestors for many generations. It helps the land stay healthy and teaches us to work with the natural world." Daniel listened intently. He had read about controlled cultural burns before, but only in books. Seeing one in practice felt completely different. "This is not just a task," Elder Joseph continued. "It is a relationship between people and land. Everyone has a role. A guest who wishes to learn must show that he can follow guidance, stay aware, and be part of a group effort without trying to lead. The land listens to intention." Daniel swallowed hard. He was deeply honored, but also aware that this was a great responsibility. Lena handed him the cloth bag she had brought earlier. When Daniel opened it, he found simple tools: thick gloves, a small rake, and a water container. "These are for safety and support," she explained. "Today, you won't be near any large flames. Your role is to help prepare the ground, clear safe paths, and follow my instructions closely." "I understand," Daniel said. The group walked together to a nearby field where patches of dry grass lay scattered among healthier plants. The morning sun was warm but gentle. Daniel noticed how calm everyone seemed, not rushed, not nervous, but very focused. It felt almost like a ceremony, even though no one said so. Lena showed Daniel how to remove small dry branches that could spread the fire too quickly. He worked beside her, mirroring her movements, trying not to make noise or disturb anything unnecessarily. Every action felt meaningful. Every detail mattered. As he worked, people occasionally spoke to him, offering quiet encouragement. "You're doing fine," Thomas said as he passed by. "Careful with that spot. It's softer than it looks," Rosa advised gently. Daniel appreciated every bit of guidance. He felt part of a shared rhythm, a united purpose. Hours passed with steady preparation. The sun rose higher, and a warm breeze brushed across the land. When everything was ready, Elder Joseph raised his hand, signaling everyone to gather again. The group formed a circle around the area they had prepared. Daniel stood between Lena and Thomas, observing everything closely. Before any flames were lit, Elder Joseph spoke softly to the group. His voice flowed naturally with the wind. "We do this with care," he reminded everyone. "Not to control the land, but to help it breathe. We guide, but the land chooses the way." Several people nodded, their faces peaceful. Daniel felt a sense of unity pass through the group. Lena leaned slightly toward Daniel and whispered, "Stay aware. Follow instructions. You'll be fine." Daniel took a slow breath, grounding himself. When the burn began, it started small, tiny patches of gentle flame, carefully guided by experienced hands. The fire moved softly across the field, almost like warm-colored water flowing through dry grass. It wasn't wild or dangerous. It was calm, steady, and purposeful. Daniel watched closely, fascinated. He couldn't believe how different this looked from anything he had imagined. There was no panic, no chaos, only harmony between the people and the land. He followed Lena's instructions, helping to keep the edges clear, checking that no stray embers settled outside the prepared area. It required patience and focus, but Daniel stayed calm, listening carefully to every signal. Then something unexpected happened. A light breeze shifted direction. It wasn't alarming or unsafe, but it required quick attention. The small flames began moving toward a patch of grass that hadn't been meant for burning. Before Daniel could react on his own instinct, Lena's voice reached him clearly but calmly. Daniel, come here. Block this path with the rake. Slow and steady. Don't rush. Her tone was steady, and he trusted it completely. Daniel moved into position and followed her instructions exactly. With careful movements, he helped create a barrier, guiding the flame back toward the safe area. Others joined in, adjusting their positions, and within moments the balance was restored. Daniel felt his heart race for a brief moment, not from fear, but from concentration. When everything settled again, Thomas gave him a reassuring nod, and one of the elders smiled quietly at him. "You listened well," she said softly. Daniel didn't answer right away. He simply nodded, humbled. The burn continued for another hour until the last gentle flames faded away. The land looked clean, refreshed, and peaceful. Smoke rose lightly into the air, carrying a warm, earthy scent. The group stood silently for a moment, honoring the tradition and its purpose. Afterward, the community returned to the shaded area near the big tree where they often gathered. People sat down, drinking water and resting. Despite the long morning, everyone seemed energized, not tired. Lena sat beside Daniel and handed him a cup of cool water. "You did well today," she said. "I saw how you listened and stayed calm." Daniel exhaled slowly. "I just followed your lead. You knew exactly what to do." "That's the point," Lena said. "You trusted us. You didn't try to act on your own. That's an important part of proving sincerity." Elder Joseph approached them and sat down gracefully. "Daniel," he said, "today you showed something important. You stayed aware. You respected the process. You did not treat this like an event, but like a responsibility." Daniel felt grateful for the elder's words. "Thank you," he said sincerely. Joseph nodded. We needed to see that. Not perfection, not skill, just intention. Others joined the conversation, sharing light stories about previous burns and how each one taught something new. Daniel listened, feeling included in a way he hadn't expected. No one treated him like an outsider now. He wasn't part of the tribe, of course, but he was a guest who had shown honesty. Later in the afternoon, some of the younger people invited him to walk along a small trail. They showed him plants, rocks, and markings that held stories. Daniel asked questions, not like a researcher, but like a student eager to understand. They answered with patience and pride. By the time the sun began to set, painting the sky in warm shades of pink and orange, Daniel felt changed. Not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet, deep way. Today had shown him that learning was not always about gathering data. Sometimes learning was about listening, trusting, and respecting something larger than himself. When he finally returned to his guest house, he stood by the window again. The stars were bright, just like the previous nights, but something inside him was different. He felt more connected, more grounded, more aware. He whispered softly into the quiet air. "Thank you." The wind moved gently outside, as if answering. Daniel lay down on the bed, tired but peaceful. He knew the community had watched him carefully today, and he sensed that he had crossed an important bridge, not through strength, but through sincerity. Tomorrow, he hoped, would bring even more understanding. Daniel woke up on his final morning in the community, feeling a mix of peace and sadness. The soft sunlight filled his room, and for a moment he stayed still, listening to the quiet around him. He had grown used to the calm rhythm of the place, the gentle footsteps outside, the distant chatter, the sound of the breeze brushing through the trees. Everything felt familiar now, almost comforting, and he realized how quickly this place had become a part of him. He stepped outside and saw Lena waiting for him, holding 2 cups of warm tea just like she had on his first morning here. She handed him one with a thoughtful smile. "Good morning," she said softly. "Good morning," Daniel replied. It feels like the days passed so quickly. That's how it feels when you're learning with your heart, she said. He took a sip of the tea, enjoying its warm, earthy taste. The sky above them was clear and bright, giving the day a gentle glow. What happens today? Daniel asked. We gather, Lena said. The elders want to speak with you. And later there will be a small gathering with the community. It's our way of saying thank you. Daniel felt a warmth spread through him. Not from the tea, but from her words. He had not expected anything like that. He thought he was just a visitor who came to learn. He did not think his presence had meant something to the community. They walked together toward the open area where the big oak tree stood. The elders were already there, sitting in a calm circle. When Daniel approached, they looked at him with kind, welcoming eyes. There was no judgment now, only familiarity, respect, and even a quiet pride. Elder Joseph motioned for him to sit. Daniel lowered himself gently onto the bench, feeling the weight of the moment. You have spent several days with us, Joseph began, and we have watched your actions, not to test you, but to understand your intention. Daniel nodded, staying silent so he wouldn't interrupt. We saw you work with care, Joseph continued. We saw you treat the land gently, listen to guidance, and respect our traditions. These things show sincerity. And sincerity is what we value. Daniel felt a soft wave of relief and gratitude wash over him. He had worried in the beginning whether he would be accepted, whether he would make mistakes. Hearing those words eased his heart. Another elder, a kind woman named Nora, spoke next. Real learning is not only about knowledge, it is about relationship, trust, openness, and understanding. You showed that you are willing to walk slowly and listen deeply. Daniel smiled, feeling humbled. Thank you, he said quietly. I learned more than I expected to. I learned more about myself, too. Elder Joseph nodded. That is good. Today you are not just a researcher who visited us. You are a guest who showed respect. For that we thank you. The elders shared a few more gentle words, expressing their hopes that Daniel would carry what he learned wherever he went. They reminded him that knowledge is not something to own. It is something to hold carefully and share with respect. After the meeting, Lena walked with Daniel down one of the small trails near the community garden. The sun had risen higher, filling the land with warm light. How do you feel? She asked. Grateful, Daniel said, and changed, in a way. I didn't expect this experience to be so personal. That's what happens when you learn through living, Lena replied. Books are useful, but they can't replace the feeling of being part of something. They walked quietly for a moment, enjoying the soft crunch of the dirt path under their feet. I'm going to miss this place, Daniel admitted. You can come back, Lena said. But even if you don't, the lessons will stay with you. Daniel looked at her and smiled. Thank you for guiding me. You didn't have to be so patient. Patience is part of our practice, Lena said with a small laugh. And you were willing to listen. That made it easier. In the afternoon, the community began preparing for the gathering. People brought out colorful blankets, baskets of food, and handmade decorations. Children ran around excitedly, helping in their own enthusiastic way. The atmosphere was warm, lively, and filled with laughter. Daniel helped wherever he could, carrying water containers, arranging chairs, and assisting with small tasks. People treated him with more ease than they had on his first day. They spoke to him openly, laughed with him, and invited him to join conversations. When everything was set, everyone gathered in a wide circle. Food was placed at the center, fresh bread, vegetables, fruit, and warm stews that smelled delicious. The children sat together, whispering and giggling, while the adults talked comfortably among themselves. Lena stood and signaled for quiet. Today, she said warmly, We want to thank Daniel for his sincerity, his effort, and his willingness to learn from us with respect. Daniel felt his face warm as everyone looked at him. It wasn't uncomfortable, it was touching. He came here not as someone trying to take something, Lena continued, but as someone who wanted to understand, and he leaves now carrying our trust. People nodded, some smiling, some clapping lightly. Daniel stood slowly. "I don't know how to thank you all," he said, speaking from his heart. "I came here hoping to learn about the land. But I learned so much more about patience, connection, and what it means to truly listen. I'm grateful for every moment you shared with me." He paused, feeling emotion rise gently in his chest. "I will carry your lessons with me always." The community clapped softly again, not loudly but warmly and meaningfully. Daniel sat down, feeling a deep sense of belonging, even if it was temporary. The gathering continued with food, stories, and gentle music played on simple instruments. People took turns telling funny memories, sharing thoughts, or describing moments from the past few days. Daniel listened, laughed, and even shared a few small stories of his own, stories not about research or facts, but about simple moments in life that shaped him. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, painting everything in shades of gold and pink, Daniel felt at peace. The land looked alive and glowing, and the people around him seemed to shine with quiet joy. Later that evening, as people packed up the blankets and baskets, Lena walked with Daniel to the guest house one last time. "You did well," she said softly. "Everyone saw your sincerity." "I'm glad," Daniel said. "I wanted to be honest." "That's why they accepted you," Lena said. "Not because of your title, not because of your research, but because of your heart." Daniel felt a warm emotion swell inside him. "I'll miss this place," he said again. "And it will remember you," Lena said with a gentle smile. When Daniel entered his guest house, he took a last long look around. Everything felt familiar, the wooden table, the window, the quiet space that had held his thoughts each night. He walked to the window and opened it, letting the cool night air flow in. The stars above sparkled brightly, as if watching over him. He whispered softly, "Thank you for everything." The wind moved gently through the trees, carrying the faint scent of the earth. Daniel lay down on the bed, feeling peaceful. His journey here had started with nervous curiosity and uncertainty, but now he felt fuller, wiser, calmer, and more connected to the world around him. He realized that he had not only learned about land stewardship, but had also discovered something deeper inside himself. He knew he would carry these lessons into every part of his life, and he hoped that someday he might return, not as a researcher seeking knowledge, but as a friend visiting a place that had touched his heart. As he drifted into sleep, he felt grateful for everything he had experienced. His sincerity had been tested, and he had earned the trust of the community. But more importantly, he had earned a new understanding of the world and of himself. And that, he knew, was the true gift he would take with him long after he left this peaceful place.